So this will be a memory pad PvT. Last time was a PvP standard guide. So this will be PvT standard guide. First of all, today we'll be going around basing our build around one gate fast expand. Why is this build is being used and the pros and cons. First of all, in PvT, in one gate fast expand with building Nexus after core. This is because if you go one gate fast expand without cybernetics core before the fast expansion, there's so many builds that you're exposed to against Terran. Honestly, it's very hard to pull off, so it's not a standard build at all. So first of all, the method is one zealot, one dragoon expand. In one zealot, one dragoon expand with 14 zealot, you can damage the opponent if they went greedy with Rax expand and while you're expanding. Even if you haven't done any damage with the zealot, you can get fast expand and you won't get overpowered economically wise. But there's there's a con to this build. The downside. You can't dictate the tempo through pure economic power of the matchup if you do this build. Compared to other builds, you have less probes, you have less resource collection. So we don't use that much. Second is no range 20 Nexus. I've never seen this being used personally that much, but I use this often. Resource wise, it's really good. But it's really hard to defend against cheese with no range dragoon. Even against BBS, it will be really bad against it. Third, 21 Nexus, also called T1 fast expand. This is a standard in the olden times, but there's a lot of up and downs with this build. The main advantage of this 21 Nexus is that you can defend against all kinds of cheese that opponent throws at you, and economically, it's better than you think. It's pretty good economic wise too. The bad thing about this is, while you can consistently produce dragoons, so you're able to defend against any timing attacks, your robotics will be really bit slow. So that's the downside of this build. The fourth is the most standard build, the modern standard build. That's the 23 Nexus is the most popular build right now. 23 Nexus, you can get economically ahead. Your tech isn't as slow. You can also defend against other opponents' timings. However, on the other hand, it's not the most greedy build. It's not the most tech heavy build. It's kind of middle of the road build. You can consider this middle of the road build. Even so, compared to all the other builds, it's a little bit better than all the downside of all the other builds, the standard builds. In my eyes, this is the best out of the lot, in my opinion, in modern times. The fifth is the most standard of the standard build. It's 3 Dragoon fast expand. 3 Dragoon expand is the weakest economic wise. Tech wise, this build doesn't really apply generally. It just depends on your own preference. You can tech up whenever. So you can consider this the most tech flexible build This is the most flexible build because you can match whatever your opponent does while it's economically weak. So these are the 5 standard builds. I'll be showing you guys example of each build. What I'm going to be showing you in this tutorial at least, I'll be showing you guys the resource collection rate, the dragoon count, and the tech timings. And finally, the pros and cons of each build. That's what I'll be going, that's the focus of this build. So, the standard I set is the 6-minute mark. The reason why is because there's 3 reasons. So at 6 minutes, this is very similar to the Terran fast expand 2-sec timings, dragoon count wise. The second one is because the probe count is very similar to each other depending on the builds from across all the builds. Third of all, this is timing where it's kind of awkward with your natural timing and the natural resource collection rate. In case of 1 zealot, 1 dragoon fast expand, so in 1 zealot, 1 dragoon expand, you get around 4,922 minerals, 1,048 gas, and 31 probe count. And you tend to get dragoon prioritize dragoon more than the probe. This is the case when you do that. And if you optimize the probe count, all the builds except the 20 Nexus will have 34 probes. So keep in mind of that. At 6-minute mark, you get 6 dragoons and 1 zealot. So all these builds will be detecting into 2-gate observer dragoon composition. That's standard. At 6 minutes, you'll get 6 dragoons. A little bit more, you'll get 7, but I'll be going off with a 6-minute cutoff. At robotics, we're going up around 4-minute 10. So what's good about 1 zealot, 1 dragoon? Pros, you have a zealot. So you can do a timing attack. Say the Terran does 14 racks, and it rules out the possibility of a 14 zealot, then you can do some serious damage. You can kill the SAB, get tons of advantage. And while this is going on, you can expo fast as well. Even if it's fast expand, if you can kill 1 or 2 marine, that's automatically advantageous to you, even if you get 1. However, there's a definitive downside to this build. Your economy was definitely lower. So the fact that you get zealot on the 14 and while you're resting probe is pretty big. It's bigger than you think it is. The downside. That 50 mineral goes a long way in early game. So that's why it's kind of hard for this to be a standard, like the most standard build. The second, 20 Nexus no range, you can see the huge boost in economy. So you get with 5,212 and 5,202 minerals and 1,088 gas. You also have 34 probes. So this one, it says mineral gas count is it kind of differs depending on how you play. So you just have to kind of look into this with a grain of salt. You don't rest your probe count a lot. And you also have, if you can get your 2-gate timing down to a decent timing, you also get 1 more dragoon at 6-minute mark with 7 dragoons. However, as opposed to this build, your early game is weaker due to no range. Say racks expand and they put a bunker on you. You can't really pressure that, or you can't really do anything to the bunker at all because you don't have any range. The pros and cons are just that. It's great economically, but you cannot pressure your opponents. The pros, economy, cons, you cannot pressure, and very dangerous early game for you. 21 Nexus, T1, also called T1 expand. So 21 Nexus gets around this much resources. So but then for this build you need to control your gas a lot. So it's kind of hard for you to squeeze in tech heavy builds with 21 Nexus. If you don't do gas control, like take off gas, take on gas, your mineral will be much lower than this. Probe wise, it's a bit longer. Since you rest your probes a lot in the earlier game, you have to be able to control your gas income. So you get around 21 probes. So it's a bit lower than that other. But however, you had 8 dragoons instead. And you have robotics going up at 4 minute 25. Since you get your second gate after 4 dragoons and robotics, it's a bit slower. The robotics wise, it's a bit slower. The pros is that you have a lot of dragoons. You can defend against every pressure easily. 2-fact, 4-2-fact, stuff like that. Everything is easy to defend with 21 Nexus, and your economy isn't bad either. So the cons is that since you get 4 dragoons in robotics, your robotics is a slower. You can say that. 21 Nexus is definitely good against Terran that does timing attacks. 23 Nexus. 23 Nexus is kind of middle of the road. It's middle of the road. It's Jack of all trade, master of none, but you get to get the pros of all these builds. It's pretty middle of the road on the resource collection wise. It's pretty good. Probe, you have a lot of probes, 35, and you have fast robotics. You also have 7 dragoons. So you have a lot of pros, but then no definite advantage. So it's all-rounder jack of all trades against Rex expand and fast factory expand. But however, the con is that as much as you have all these all-rounders, it doesn't really have, it's not really outstanding against anything, any situation. It's just a middle of the road build. But tech is pretty fast, I guess. But you can't really pressure with this build. Your resource collection wise, it's not like you're really ahead of your opponent at all with this resource collection. 23 Nexus is a bit awkward. However, in trade-off, it's all-rounder. The 3 Dragoon expand. Since your Nexus is slower, you get around this much resources. Your resource is a lot lower than other builds. You have a lot of probes, 34. Dragoon, if you can get your 2 gate timing down, 7, you get around 7 Dragoons. Robotics, it's a bit slow. After 29 Nexus, you get Dragoon after, and then you kind of rest your Dragoon, so it's kind of slow at 4 minute 20. The pros, you can match your opponents. You can see what your opponent's doing and react. This is the biggest pros. This is why 3 Dragoon expand is the standard, because you can match anything your opponent does. You can see what your opponent does, you can react to it. Say Terran does Brax expand, you can do forward robo, or you can cut off SAB scout with a dragoon, and you can do dragoon 1 gate 3 gate nexus, triple nexus, or you can go fast reaver. So you have a lot of choices when you're going this build against Terran. You can cut off scouting, you can pressure the bunker, especially against the Rax expand. In my opinion, this is the best against Rax opponents, since you can do crawling revert as well. But it's kind of not as good against factory expand. Your resources are considerably lower than other ones. Other than that, you don't have that much dragoon. You're kinda in danger against 2 factory expand type of builds. You need to have Reaver to defend against stuff like that. While you're doing 3 Dragoon expand, you can also go 2 Dragoon expand instead of 3 Dragoon expand. But however, even if you do 2 Dragoon expand instead of 3 Dragoon expand, your resource count will be the same. Well, in this text it says he tried it one more time. You have a faster Nexus, so you have a little bit more mineral, maybe 50 to 100. So it's not that much difference, even if you do 2 Dragoon and expand. So 50 to 100 mineral difference between 2 Dragoon and 3 Dragoon double expand. Probe count is the same. You have less Dragoons since you skip your 3rd Dragoon. But you have a choice of doing 2 Dragoon Robo instead, so your tech is faster than 420. It's around 4 minutes, 5 to 10 seconds. Just the tech is slightly faster. But your resource isn't as good as other builds. So say that you see there is like a opponent taking a fast expansion, like a Rax expand, then you can choose to do 2 Dragoon expand to save on the Dragoon resources and get faster economy up, but that's about it. That's the only reason you should really go to Dragoon expand. So this is 2 Dragoon, 3 Pylon expand. You will not be resting on probes. It's kind of hard for this to be the standard. Only really use it when you match your opponent's build. To sum it up, the resource count will be depending on how fast you get your Nexus up. Well, 20 Nexus, 21 Nexus, 23 Nexus is the best. However, T1 expand is the best to defend against other opponents' builds. However, these other standard builds, you can, with good enough control, you can defend against all the pressures. So your speed of teching up depends on how fast you cut your Dragoons or how many you get your Dragoons, not the builds. This is a summary of the builds. Just keep this in mind and practice the builds with the content I'll be uploading later. Well, not me, this guy.